Alright, so I got a couple of requests on some of the equipment that I use. Guys, bear with me, I'm just starting to get my voice back. I've been sick for a few weeks. I made something out of a snowboard binding. If you can kind of hop up with the camera a little bit, I'll show it a little better. This is one that broke on me because the guy that I had sew this one up didn't listen to what I needed in here. Basically, it's a snowboard binding. It's got a little piece of leather in here. He sewed a big piece of leather back here with some neoprene on it for some padding, and there's supposed to be some metal washers inside and screws that actually go down in so that it stays nice and tight. He riveted this one, so I wanted to go deadlift with it to test it out. It broke right off. That's why I don't test them up by hanging off a bar. I always test it out with some deadlift and try to put on more than my body weight. Do a bunch of reps really, not really quick, but controlled, but good solid reps coming up good and fast. So that's a good reason why to test these things out. But you can see here, come a little closer. It's just a snowboard binding. I took the ratcheting end of it and stuck it on this side. It screws right down in. And this can loop back to itself, go right into its little slot here, and then you can just ratchet it right down. You get it nice and tight. This is the one that I use. Looks a little bit different. The neoprene in this one folds over this way so that it protects the part of my arm that is left open in between right here. And I wear 3 to 4 socks depending on what I'm doing. Body weight stuff, anything under 200 pounds, usually about 3 socks will get away with it. When I'm starting to do heavier deadlift, put on an extra sock for extra padding. Sometimes I'll even tape up my arm around where I get some wear here on the end of my elbow. I do actually, I forgot to mention this, I do actually have my elbow, but I don't have use of it. I can only bend it about that much, and it's not even enough to really hold anything on, which is why I came up with this design. So it should or could work with some ingenuity and a little bit of messing around. It could work for above the elbows, and I can guarantee you if you're below the elbow, it'll definitely work with this setup. So, strapping this bad boy on, it's pretty simple. Just make sure your neoprene isn't all crazy and all over the place like mine is right now. I usually like my hook to be up top. It feels more natural when I pull. A lot of times when I pull it from the ground, I know that when I deadlift, I used to do a switch grip, and that's where this sits. And when I go to do things like cleans, I turn my arm in a little bit and it still pulls up the same way and flips down and easy, pretty nice. So, and same thing with pull-ups, it's in a good spot for there. When I put it down, a lot of times I found that it starts to twist funny ways and starts to ride off a little bit. Now, you put this as tight as you need to. I usually get it down pretty tight. I'll go and get my stuff set up, and then I'll go ahead and ratchet it a little bit more, and it'll click. It won't go like super far with a snowboard binding. It'll stop itself. It'll just keep kind of, well, I guess not this time, but it usually just kind of clicks past a certain point and just won't let it go any further, or it'll just kind of pop out of that last little groove. Now, the way that I use a chain, a little bit different. I know Kendra Bailey just came up with a new and improved method, and I really like what she's working with. We just got to figure out a way to make it not slide around, and I guess Chef might have that already. But I take a chain and I loop it around like this. Make a nice little loop. I got a quick link right here, and I got this snap right here. And I know it's not a locking carabiner, but it does justice for lightweight stuff. It doesn't really catch or pop off. I've been pretty lucky with it so far. And with stuff where you're hanging, you're fine, because of the way that it's hanging down, it'll never catch and pop off. It's just not going to happen. I have had it come off sometimes on a clean, which is why when I go heavy with my cleans, I just use a locking quick link. This one right here. Can you come a little closer? You need to really get in on this stuff so people can see, sweetie. This one right here, I'll usually just get another one of these and hook it right on to here and close it right up, so that way it won't come undone, instead of using a big hunky locking carabiner. And you see I just looped it through itself right here. Kind of like if you ever did any sort of work with ropes, it's kind of like a prusik with a single pass. Or any sort of work with knots, I should say. From there, I take my pipe right here. Again, Kendra came up with a carbon fiber thing, probably a lot lighter and a lot better. I personally like a little bit of weight, mimics my arm a lot better. But to each their own. I'm going to try to figure out a rubberized cap or something to keep it in place for the most part. Because right now, well, I'll explain the problem that we run into with this in a minute. But I pass the chain right down and through. And you'll see that because of the way that I pass the chain through itself down here, it's holding very similarly to the way that a hand does, cinching up on itself. And it doesn't slide very much. It will a little bit as the cleans go on. It'll start to go out and out a little, but it won't go out so far that it's unnatural. And as you start to do cleans in your hand and you get that nice loose grip, a lot of times your hands will start to slide out a little bit anyways into more of a jerk position. So it's not horrible. Every 5 or 10 reps you got to stop and reset. Of course, using lightweight can't really. I'll get into the heavyweight stuff in a minute. So from here you can pretty much go and treat it. I like to put it just a tiny bit out further than my hand. Well, really it ends up at about the same spot, at least the edge of my hand, thumb grip, right up, and that's it. It locks right on. If I want to go ahead and do a clean, everything's pretty much the same as when I had two arms. My grip is going to be the same, my chest is going to be up, shoulders forward. Hopefully I can do a decent one and not really jack this thing up. I'm not really warmed up, but it's pretty lightweight. So here we go. And boom, nice little power clean just like that. So this little pipe right here actually created some rigidity, mimicked a forearm when it was flipping up and around, so it doesn't crash down on my stump down low and hurt me. It makes it land right up on my shoulders where it should. As you see, come a little closer. As you see, it's right on my shoulders where it should be landing on a normal clean. And it's not really off balanced or crazy anything. It's right down in the center. So now, as you saw, when I dropped it, I had to kind of ride it down. That's why I only do it with lightweight. When I do heavyweight, what I have to end up doing is a lot of times disconnect this piece. Well, I'll have to put it up on a rack, walk it up to a rack after cleaning. Like when I do my 1 rep maxes and stuff, my last one I think was 165. I had to walk up, put it on the rack, unclip here so that way I don't lose all of this, and then just pick it up off the rack in a front squat position and just drop it back down to the floor, roll it back to me, reset on the floor like this, stand up, and give it another go from there. And I know what some of you are thinking, well, what happens in a bailout? Well, I actually train bailouts. Like I work with lightweight on practicing missing my clean just to make sure that I can get quick in that position. And the couple times that I have had to bail out, all of them I've been able to, on my way up, I miss the clean on the way down, and I just drop it forward just like this, and it extends all the way. There was only one time where it pulled a little bit, and it actually just popped the snowboard binding open. You know, it came down with enough force that it popped that off. That was an old one that I had set up anyways that I didn't really have tightened down quite the way that I should have. Now I'm getting a little bit smarter. Not a lot, but a little bit. We're getting there. So, that's how you use it for a clean. And as you see right here, it didn't move on that clean. It stayed exactly where I had it set up. Or maybe over just a tiny bit. But it won't go out past this line. I can almost guarantee you that. I've never had it go out that far, and I've done up to 30 without putting it down. I was doing the paleo challenge, 65 pounds, banged them right out, touch and goes. Good to go like that. So, the nice thing about this setup too, give me 1 second to get this all pulled off, is it's really nice for pull-ups because it stays real tight and I don't have to try to hook my arm, which I can't do because I don't have mobility in my elbow. There we go. Get that off. So, one of my fears before was doing toes to bar and pull-ups and stuff like that. I was afraid that something would slide right off when I was at a hang. this ratcheting down, especially on these socks because they create such a padding, it never really cuts off a lot of circulation, but it locks right into them. A little tight. Takes a little getting used to it first. I wouldn't say that it's painful, more obnoxious than anything, but once you get used to it, it's just like anything else. Like at first, when you first start doing pull-up, your hands might get sore. Then you get used to it after a while. Same thing here. It's just something else for us to get used to. One more thing that we adapt and overcome. So let's check this out. See if I can knock out a couple pull-ups. I did a bunch of them today, so bear with me. I'm going to try to give it my best shot. Now when I go ahead and set up, same deal. I just pass it over, down and through itself, just like that. Instead of using a hook or something like that, which the hook wasn't a bad idea, but it slid, and it's also not good for kipping pull-ups. So, I mean, if I'm doing strict pull-ups, sometimes I'll slap the hook on real quick and bang out sets. But when you get down to kipping pull-ups and you're really getting that good hip up, especially when you're getting the big kip and like chest to bar, it's a no-go. It pops up, and that gets really dangerous real fast. So, this makes it so it's not going to pop off. And I know what you're thinking. You're tethered up here now. Yes, I am tethered. If this hand slips off, this one's going to be hanging. It's going to get a little funky. So you got to know your body, know your limits, know your breaking points. Test your equipment all the time. Check it out. Every day before I work out, I go over a little inspection, check things out. I'll put like a kettlebell on it, hanging off the strap, one of the, 2 poods or something, and just kind of walking around, swinging around a little, make sure everything's feeling good. Check out my chain, make sure there's no pieces where the carabiners are breaking. I've also made sure that they were all rated with a high enough safety rating, well over my body weight. Most of my stuff is rated between 315 and 515 pounds. So this carabiner right here is rated for 400 something. This little quick link, as small as it is rated for I think in the 400s as well. And this chain is rated for well over 500 pounds. So I don't have the exact numbers. It was a while ago when I made a lot of this stuff. But trust me, I remember it was somewhere up there, all over 300, 400, 500 pounds. The least rated piece actually is this one right here. This one that I use is rated right at 315, which is why my deadlift 1 rep max is so low right now, because I don't really want to push it, so I usually only go up to about 275. That's the most weight that I've hung off of it. No, excuse me, I did do 305 once just to make sure that, because I wanted to get something out of it, and I thought it was going to break, and I was making a new one. So that was not that one, but one of my older models. So here we go, a couple pull-ups. Not doing any toes to bar because I'm just really sore today, but I will do these for you. My neat little party trick. Now you're gonna have to do some adjusting and make sure that it's in the right spot. Hold on, I'm gonna move my box up a little bit so that way I can do this. It's really important to make sure that this is locked in the right spot. All right, you don't want to get up here and have it too far over to one side and then it starts to turn and create friction on your arm and you take your sock off and there's a bunch of blood and nasty. You don't want that, all right? Make sure that you have it in the right spot more or less right off the bat. Don't worry if your chain twists a little bit to the left or to the right if you're missing your right arm. Don't worry about that because once you hook it on and you turn and start getting into it, it'll straighten right out. You just don't want it to have big twists in it because that creates funky tension on this chain and pressure in points where it's not supposed to. You want everything to be hanging down freely. So, here I am, locked up on here. Usually I use a little bit shorter chain, so I'll find out if it makes it a little bit more difficult right now. I forgot to move my box back. And if it does, then I'll just pop another quick video using the shorter chain where I can get my nice kip and get the flow into it. Out of the way, rings. Alright. Downside of a little home gym, everything gets kind of tight. So here we go. Now, my chain will be, you'll notice a slight bend in my right elbow, and I know that in CrossFit we're supposed to use full range of motion, but when I use a full length chain, it's really hard to get all the way up over the bar. And I believe that I get a lot more out of out of just a slight bend or a slight deviance in that range of motion than not doing the exercise at all, or not being able to get up over the bar at all. Because I'm still getting the range here, it's just on the way down. I might stay a little bit here on some of my reps. So I'm nice and tight, everything's locked in. I'm gonna go ahead into my, yeah. So that's why you make sure the chain is at a dead hang. Sorry about that. Probably some people are like, oh crap, that's scary. No, it's just because I had it stuck on itself like I was saying not to do just a second ago. Make sure that this is all unraveled all the way so that links don't lock down like that in the middle of your pull-up. And that's also why you don't just jump right into it. You go ahead and hang for a second and make sure everything feels nice and stable, like so. Oops. All right, and you can do some nice strict pull-ups. All of it. Knees to elbow, toes to bar, whatever you need to do. This thing works awesome. It's a snowboard binding. Crank it down nice and tight. Now, if you have a higher amputation, or you don't have, or you think it'll slip off because the way that your stump comes down, you might be able to set up to go a little bit higher up here on the arm. I'm not sure how that'll affect the range of motion. I haven't done a lot of work with other amputees on this. I'm really developing things for myself right now so I can try to spread them out and get some ideas out there. But I think it'll work generally the same. I use a similar setup for rowing with a different clamp, so that way it stays nice and bilateral instead of rowing down the center, which is really nice. Kettlebell swings, same thing. I use this guy right here, and that really makes a huge difference. And that's one that I do believe, if you use the right length, that even people with high amputations, as long as you can get it around your bicep and get it to pinch down on something, you can really benefit from this one. So even if you can't use it for cleans or to hang down off of a bar, you might be able to use it with a kettlebell. Or as all my friends that don't know CrossFit call it, a cowbell. I have no idea where that started. I thought these things were pretty popular, but there we go. All good to go. And start off just like a normal kettlebell swing. And go right up with it. Obviously, do your little Russian swing. Whatever you need to do. Alright? The only thing I wouldn't do is any one-arm work with it. Don't go start trying to swing the kettlebell with one side. You can't control it. That's craziness. No need for that. So, it's not a science yet. I'm not an engineer. It's something I developed by myself, so the safety of it is, you know, up for you to decide on whether it's something you think is practical for you to try to make, or maybe just cough up the video to somebody that you know that can try to fucking, oh, excuse me, pardon my French, try to design this themselves. But, yeah, considering I had just a little guy that sews up boots and stuff help me out with this, and came up with a lot of this stuff myself. It's held up really good. I've used it in competitions. I've used it at my gym pretty much almost every day of the week, and it all holds up pretty well. I've only had a couple of things break, and when they break, they're in positions that I expected them to break because, well, I was testing them out and making sure that they could hold certain amounts of weight. Knock on wood, I haven't had anything come down on me when I was up doing pull-ups or anything. And I'm sure the day will come, and it'll be ugly when it does. And that can happen with any sort of piece of equipment. Anything can fail. I've seen barbells, like I saw an end of a barbell one time just fly off in the middle of somebody's clean. Shit happens, guys. But for the most part, this stuff is pretty safe. It's all rated well over my body weight. I made sure of it, and it works. It's not perfect, so if anybody has any ideas to help out with it, I greatly appreciate it, especially with the clean thing. Like I was saying, when I get my cleans up, I have to just go and drop them when I get over like 75 pounds, because with 85 pounds and more, well 85 I can still kind of ride down, but 95 pounds or more, when you go from this position to here, normally you'd be able to fight it back a little bit with your arm and slow it down and catch it at the hip and then go back down. But this side doesn't have anything to fight it back. It builds up all that momentum on this side and then it just jerks down over. So that's one that I'm still working on. If anybody comes up with a fix for that, you let me know. Aside from that, it works pretty good. So that's how I use this piece of equipment. Here, I'll pop it off real quick, just to show one more time. Little snowboard binding, just like that. I loop it through itself. Slide it down my arm, ratchet it into position. Again, I usually like this to be pretty well towards the top of my arm, just slightly off to the side, off to the inside, and then it ratchets down to a certain point where it won't go anymore. Then it's solid. My chain that I use, again, I can't remember the gauge of chain and stuff like that. I can do more research into it and get the exact numbers out, but it's about, with the carabiner on it, it's right about from fingertip, just a tiny bit longer than my arm, so when I'm up on a pull-up bar, it actually comes out to just about the same length of my arm when it's wrapped through itself, and same thing when it's on a bar there. It comes out to just about the same length, maybe a tiny bit shorter, but a tiny bit shorter is not always so bad when we're shorter on this side anyways. Sometimes it makes it a little bit easier for things to go up. Just be careful, you don't want to make it too short with the cleans because it'll start landing here on your bicep and that can get really painful. Trust me, I know. I have a pile of chains of different lengths when I was trying to figure it out. So that's the end of that one. Hopefully it helps out some people. If there's any questions, let me know. Michelle, I know you were asking about how to set this stuff up. Hopefully it answered some of your questions. And hopefully I can get this video to load up online. Let me know if you guys have anything else. Thank you.